Live from the pitch pad in New York City. Get ready to unleash your inner entrepreneur with Pitch Live with Amy Summers. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just dipping your toes into the Shark Tank, this is the place to be to discover how to turn your pitch into reality. Fasten your seatbelts, pitch stars, because the spotlight is on you and we are about to make success happen. On this episode of Pitch Live,
I was talking to the GM of the Packers. The starting quarterback was Brett Favre, and the backup quarterback was Matthew Hasselbeck. But I said, I think I'm the best quarterback on the planet. And even as I said that, I'm like, one, that sounds really stupid. I would never say that. And two, you got Brett Favre starting. You can get your ego so tied up into, do I win this pitch? Versus, can I try to create a scenario where what I'm pitching is a win-win?
Get ready for Pitch Live in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Pitch Live. I'm your host, Amy Summers, founder and president of Pitch Publicity and Vox. I'm also a hardworking entrepreneur who is passionate about helping you reach success in any area of your life. And I know that is possible after decades of experience in perfecting the pitch and enhancing communication skills, which is why I'm so glad that I'm joined here today with Danny Wuerffel, who I've known since my college years, but Danny didn't really know me at that time. He was a little busy. He was when I was a student at the University of Florida, Danny was already a legend in our eyes. He was a star quarterback. He led the Gators to 4 SEC championships and our first ever national title in 1996. Can you believe it's been that long, Danny?
It's a lot of years.
We happened to be in the same public relations class, but I didn't really meet him until years later. I was working with one of his teammates, Chris Doring, on a Florida Players Network event where Danny was a keynote speaker, and that led to years of collaboration promoting his nonprofit, Desire Street Ministries, and also helping promote his namesake honor, the Wuerffel Trophy, college football's premier award for community service. Danny is one of the most decorated athletes in Gator history, a Heisman Trophy winner, Campbell Award recipient, and a member of multiple Hall of Fames, including the College Football Hall of Fame. After graduating from UF with a degree in PR, he went on to play for the NFL in New Orleans for the Saints, also Green Bay Packers, Chicago Bears, Washington Redskins. He even won a World Bowl championship in NFL Europe. And today he leads as executive director of Desire Street Ministries and president of the Wuerffel Foundation. And in true Danny fashion, he's still winning. Now as a professional pickleball player in the National Pickleball League and founder of Pickle Bowl, which is a premier celebrity pro-am charity event. Welcome, Danny.
Man, that's an incredible introduction. Thank you. I feel really, really accomplished and ready to go.
Well, we're doing something new this season, in this season 3. I didn't tell you about this, so this will be impromptu a bit. But I'm doing it behind the bio series. And this is going to be especially difficult for you because I feel like there's so much information available out there about you that people can get. But I would like you to just share with our audience something about you that's not on your bio, or not something we can easily Google and find out about you. But what would you like people to really know about Danny Wuerffel that's not publicized or on Wikipedia? Tell us about
if it's not publicized, I probably don't want them to know it, right? I think I was thinking about this as a few of the questions made me think along these lines as well. But just I think that there's a level of humor that's a little bit off color that if people that know me well, like if you talk to Chris Doring, he might tell some different stories of humor and jokes that aren't necessarily available or not something I would want to put out there that are still kind of part of who I am.
So you have a funny side to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think I try to be funny. If I'm speaking, I try to be funny, but I think it's the off-color piece that might not get out as much on Twitter as maybe if we're just hanging out.
All right, good. Well, I want to talk about your football career a little bit. You were leading a very high-profile college football team at the time, and at such a young age. And I just wanted to know, Where did you get your leadership instincts from? Where did that come from?
Well, I mean, I think anything you typically you picked up somewhere, and I had some great people pouring into me. But I think at that point in my life, and in that role, it was a little bit more of leading, by example. Doing the hard work, and hopefully people see that, then they recognize that, and that inspires teammates. But I also think, kind of my natural kind of persona that has sort of stuck with me. I'm really kind of gravitate towards the encouraging, the galvanizing, the how can we be drawn together? How can we as a group have a better effect on one another and do that? And so I think that was always kind of part of my style from early on. I think leading by example and then really trying to be encouraging of others.
I love how you've stayed connected with so many of your college teammates. They come to your golf tournaments. I mean, I just love that you've stayed connected with them. If you went back in time to the college years, how how would they have described Danny Wuerffel, the quarterback? How would they have described your leadership style?
It probably, evolved, and rightfully so, from maybe when I was a freshman and playing, to when I was a senior. I think, sometimes reading the room and recognizing if you're the young kid, my wife and I, we watched the first episode of young Sheldon the other day, and he showed up in high school and just told everybody what was wrong about him. And that didn't go off very well for him. So I think if you're a young freshman trying to, hold people accountable, that may or may not work as well. So I think it evolved over time. I think some leadership is based in sort of your authority or your position. In a football team as a quarterback, you really don't have authority. You really are leaning on sort of leadership by persuasion. How can you encourage, persuade, advocate? And again, one of the things that that I think some of the teammates would remember was, it's a very different day, NIL, from then till now. Like, now they get everything and all that stuff. Back then, we didn't even get free Gatorade. Like, we only got so much, like, they give us coins to get so many Gatorades a week, and after that, we had to buy it ourselves. So we would always fight over these coins. Well, we called it stick ball. They had, like, tape that they made a ball, and then we had a stick. So in the locker room, we're playing this game, and I created this big tournament, and it was a real fun way for guys to sorta, when practice was over, not just get out the building, but stay together and build some camaraderie.
That's so funny that you had to pay for your Gatorade. Of course, you hear the Gatorade commercials now, and they're bragging about the Gators. So
Oh, yeah, yeah.
different times. Well, you were when you were playing, you had the privilege of working under Coach Steve Spurrier, those championship years. I remember as a PR student, whenever had an assignment to go write an article and someone had to go interview him, we were like, no, nobody wanted to do it. It was scary. He's very intimidating. um, I just wanted to know, what was it like being coached by him? And how would you say that your leadership style differs from his today, or does it?
Yeah, first of all, kinda he just recently, over this past year, turned 80. Can you kinda believe that? It's just
Oh,
just amazing, and our relationship is still, as strong as ever, and I think playing for him changed the trajectory of my life. He pushed me to be the best that I could be. But it wasn't always easy. I mean, he was very, very aggressive in his coaching at times. I think, he wasn't always easy or pleasant. You kind of talk about a good cop tandem in the shows is to have kind of a good cop, bad cop. And, he could play both roles. I was a little more limited to being the good cop, but, he was tough. He pushed you. It wasn't always easy, but he pushed us to be the best that we could be.
was it shocking to you at first? Was that the first time you had ever encountered anybody pushing you that hard? Or in high school, did you have something to draw on to go, okay, I can handle this guy?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot about my high school coach because he was one of the biggest impacts in my life, in so many different ways. I saw him also not too long ago, and that relationship is still incredibly strong. So I was used to sort of intensity, but I think Coach Burr just he's had another level of that, and he was awesome. I think even as I've grown, there's some things about his leadership that were so, I think, unique in that he had an ability to be so, like, obsessively attentive to certain details. It's kinda like, where's your face looking? Where are your eyes looking? How many steps did you take? Were your steps the same timing every time? And, like, the way he taught receiver routes was almost crazily detailed and structured. And there was another side of him that was like, heck, let's just make this play and you're the bottle cap and you run down 10 feet and turn left. And he was flexible. Like he
Hmm.
could pivot and be flexible like most people who are very detail oriented can't be. So he had this unique balance of incorporating flexibility when needed and also this incredible attention to detail, almost unflappable inability to change on certain things. So it was this unique combination that I find I see all the time as a parent. Like, when do I need to be flexible? When do I need to hold it down as a leader and all these things?
Skills you can use anywhere.
Yeah.
Flexibility and structure.
Yeah.
It's interesting when we talk about, I talk about mentorship a lot, and I will often warn my interns, college interns that come work for me, I'm going to mentor you, but it's not going to always be coddling and going to get coffee. Like, I'm going to push you. And I will tell them, I'm going to push you like a coach pushes an athlete, even though I haven't had the experience that you have. Um, Can you tell me a little bit, because you've had a lot of coaches. Is there, from high school to, professionals, is there one coach that really sticks out to you that you would call, like, one of your greatest mentors? And what was it about their guidance that really, um, is with you today?
Yeah, I mean, I would say my high school football coach, he came at a time when we were young men, we were more shapeable, moldable. I mean, I remember he had this acronym, champion, and he would do these sermons. I call them sermons, these talks. C was for character, H was for heart, A was for attitude, M was for mental toughness, P was for having poise and pride in your work, I was for initiative, O was for others, N was for nerve. So talk about things that stick with you. And just the just his belief in me, his he was an amazing leader. He also then, after a year, came to Florida and coached there. So he was with me during all my time at Florida, and so I think in terms of actually shaping, molding, he's one that comes to mind. And I also want to give a quick shout out to the late Dick Duran. He was an amazing player, Hall of Fame player, and then a great coach, often a defensive coordinator, super successful. He was the head coach at Chicago. And there was a situation where we were ahead at the end of a game and we misjudged the clock and we just took knees like 3 times in a row, but instead of the game ending, there was like 15 seconds left on the clock and the other team went down the field and almost won. So, like, it was one of the biggest coaching blunders of the year and he was getting all of it. And, a couple days later, I talked to one of our, quality control assistants guys, and he actually started weeping because he said, "Danny, my job was to count the seconds, and I told him the wrong time, and he's never told anybody. Like, it's never come out." Like, and so the head coach sort of covered, the mistakes of his group, and, I think that's one of the things is when it's time to celebrate, you wanna share, and heap that on everybody, and when things go wrong, you wanna own it, as much as possible, and that was something I learned from, Dick Duran.
I like that in leadership, like, really owning what your whole team does if it doesn't work out, and not calling out a particular person. What was your high school coach's name?
Jimmy Ray Stevens.
What a great name.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So, advice to students being recruited. There's a interview process, I'm sure. I guess they're going to meet the coach at some time, and there's, persuasion and things that are going on. If somebody wants to make sure that they're going to be under good leadership, is it just luck, or is there something that they can look for, or can they ask certain questions that'll help them identify a good coach?
Well, I think, it's a little bit unique in the coaching world here with all that's going on, but I think, the idea of doing due diligence on anything you do in life is important, and not to over refer back to young Shelton, but his grandmother taught him how to bluff because he didn't even think that was a real thing. He thought you just believed what everybody's face was saying. And unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. And a lot of people can make great pitches, if you will, and a lot of people can sell you on something, but it doesn't always turn out. There's a hilarious Sports Center commercial kind of from a few years ago where they were just showing an athlete and the coach heaping praise on him like he's the greatest thing ever, and then it shifts to the sideline on the game where the coach is just screaming at him like he's an idiot. And he's like, "Oh, wait a minute, is this the same guy?" And so I think finding out, you can also look at what programs the universities have for players to develop off the field, and hopefully that's part of their pitch, or their recruiting pitch, is to show you that. I think if I were going into the business world, try to find other people that have worked for a leader and find out, are they really trying to develop you? Do they invest in you, or are they just sort of using you for a time, thinking that you're going to get discarded? But you want someone that believes in you, that can help develop you.
That's good. And what would be like a specific question you would ask to kind of get to that, if you can tell if they're going to develop you or not?
I think, what are some of the ways that you've helped develop younger people in the past, and
Mhm.
just sort of see how they answer that. See if they have any examples or any names. If they do, you could actually maybe do some referral work and reach out to that person and see if their story matches. Um, and so, that comes to mind.
Yeah, I think that's good. Asking for examples, especially I feel like, a lot of people will throw things up on their website like they're diverse or they're inclusive. And then when it gets down to it, there's not much of that going on. That
Right,
was just the marketing department
right,
saying
right.
how great the company was. Now, through your work with Wuerffel Trophy, you've been doing that for 20 years or so now. Uh, it really was the first award that focused in on the community service that an athlete is doing. Is that right? Can you
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about the Wuerffel Trophy?
Yeah, I mean, we have and continue to live in a day and age where most college athletes aren't going to really be in the spotlight unless they're like the best player on a good team, or unless they do something really dumb. Like those are the two ways to get publicity as a college football player. But it bothered me to continually run into guys that were doing such fantastic stuff, and really not be known because maybe they didn't score as many touchdowns as somebody else. And you know, um, so my whole kind of life vision, the mission of the Wuerffel Foundation, is inspiring service and unity in the world. But really, to be honest, I can't take any credit for how it started. There's another group of guys that saw a place for this and a vision, and asked if they could use my name for it. And I was honored, but I also at the time thought there were too many college football awards, so I kind of said no. But then it was actually the director of the Heisman Trophy at the time, Rudy Riska, who convinced me. He said, "Danny, I think college football could use an award like this, and I think if you got behind it, it could do well." So that's how it started. It's grown, and I've just been blown away to make the effort. You start finding out how many guys are doing incredible amounts of community service. We only can take one nominee per team, and we had 118 nominees, record breaking this year. So that's how many schools nominated somebody, and then we get to tell their stories all year long.
That's amazing, and they sought you out as the name for it because of all the community focus that you have spent your career on, I guess. Um, Now with the Wuerffel Trophy, have you seen, now that there's an award out there for it, do you see a shift in more community service being done among athletes now that there's something to strive for?
I mean, I think that's part of it. I think part of the goal is, bad things can be contagious, but good things can be too. And so, the more you see somebody do something, the more you can envision yourself doing it. I think the more good things are celebrated, the more motivated you are to do it. So I do think, my sense is that young men are pretty excited when they get nominated for this. That it's something that values their value system, and so we've seen a lot of positivity. Yeah, really good.
And, now college students can get paid. They can get sponsor deals. Now that's something new. Has that affected anything in terms of a student being more community focused? Has that changed anything from your view?
It's interesting. I think, the more anything is influencer type driven, I think just the human nature has a sense of being a little less authentic, and it's easier to question people's motives, but at the same time, sometimes by sharing what you've done inspires people too. So it's kind of a difficult thing there. I think the some of the schools, have actually used the NIL payments and tied it to community service. And again, part of that's great because now they're doing community service. They're motivated. They're posting and helping the charities get more attention. But on the other hand, if you're getting paid to do something, it kind of takes away a little bit of possibly the genuineness in your heart of doing it. So I think, part of our goal when we're looking through all these nominees is trying to get a sense for, is their community service, was it tied to NIL? Was it more tied to just their desire to serve, and look at those as well in the criteria.
If you could travel back 30 years ago, 1996, what advice would you have given college-age Danny Wuerffel, who was really stepping into the spotlight on a national stage for the first time? Would you have changed anything or done anything differently?
I think I'd say, really encouraging me to be myself. It's being authentic, I think is important. I think also reminding that you can't make everyone happy. I was really driven to be a nice guy, and I wanted people to like me and be happy, and so that was a lot of my psyche, I think, at the time. So I think it's okay to say no. I got asked to do so many things, and I kind of felt like if I wasn't busy on that day, if I didn't already have a commitment, I kind of felt a little obligated to say yes. And so I think along those lines, I encourage younger Danny to protect his time a little bit. And also, I don't know if I could have done it back then, but I've just really grown to value some alone time, some quiet time, praying, meditation, where it's just me. And I went and got lunch the other day by myself, and I don't think I'd ever would have done that, 30 years ago. But I was like, enjoyed it.
I appreciate you saying that because I mean, I've mainly known you in your adult years, not really your college years. I wasn't friends with you in college. Um, But I've always respected about you that you have very strong boundaries because we've worked together. I would book interviews and be like, "Okay, Amy, that's enough." Or, you would set like very clear boundaries for how many interviews you wanted us to do or when and where you were available. And I admire that because it's tough. As you keep adding on things and you keep being in the spotlight and you feel like you have to do more and more. Can you give us, if somebody finds themselves in that situation where they just are not having those moments where they can be to themselves or their family, how do you start setting up boundaries if your schedule is already so crazy?
Well, I mean, I think part of it is I grew to realize I was not my best self if I'm overextended. And, I only have so much good energy. I love being with people and love being around people, but I actually kinda get more centered and more authentic the more time I spend by myself, and so I think that was sort of some hard lessons. So I think the first thing is you can't just think, "Oh, I should do it because I should do it." It's almost like you really need it, and when you really believe that, I think it starts to become a priority, and I find if I do too many things, the quality, the authenticity, the effectiveness just really starts to drop. I had, an intern that was with me and would have different interns. And he said one time he always knows at the end of a long night if I've spoken and I'm like in a line taking pictures or signing autographs. He says, I know when you've checked out. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, you start saying the word excellent. And that's all you say, no matter what people say. I'm like, that's not true. He said, this woman came up and told you her husband was sick and you said excellent. I'm like, oh, there's no way. So like, that's you don't want to be in that situation. So I think that, and you got to find your own rhythms. I think at different times in my life, when kids were different ages, different things were or not available to do, or when they're really young, they go to bed earlier, so then you can kind of maybe get some time afterwards. And when they're later, they sleep in, so the morning might be better. And so it just depends.
All right, so I want to kind of shift into obviously you're a huge expert in football and strategy, and we talked about that a little bit. But you're also a communications expert. You got your degree in public relations at the University of Florida. I wanted to know, did you declare that major thinking that you were going to use it in your career, or why did you pick it initially, and did you end up using it in the way that you thought you were going to?
So when I came to Florida, I was really good at math, science. I kind of envisioned being an engineer. So I kind of got an engineer track, and all my electives were, physics and calculus and chemistry, which is like looking back, not necessary. But also, I really didn't love that. And looking now, I don't think I'd been happy being an engineer. Personally, but I think I figured that out, as well as a lot of those like core classes were going to be afternoon classes, which would be difficult with football. So I actually became almost like a free agent after a year or two. And just looking, I looked at building construction, I looked business, and then one of our managers was in PR, and so I started learning about PR, and what I really thought at the time was, I don't know if I'll ever use this in a career, but it certainly, I'm dealing with media, I'm dealing with a public image, I'm dealing with a lot of things, and this could be really, really helpful for me as a football player kind of in the spotlight. So that was my initial thought, and I had no idea it would turn out to be such a value add to all the things we do at Desire Street and the Wuerffel Foundation.
Yeah, I really see you through that PR lens in a lot of roles that you're doing today. So that's interesting that though at the time you weren't really sure how you were going to use it. But conveniently, College of Journalism was right next to the School of Engineering. So maybe you didn't have to do that much research. Did you just walk next door?
Yeah, so I walk across the street.
um, was there anything that really stuck with you as far as skills that you've learned from your PR background, professors or even professionals in the field that you've taken away that you're using at Desire Street or the Wuerffel Foundation? I know you do a lot of fundraising now. Is there any skills that you've picked up, communication skills that are really valuable?
I mean, you pick stuff all the time. I mean, I learned a lot from you and all the work that you did to help us with the different things between the golf tournament, the Desire Cup, and the Wuerffel Trophy, and I didn't even know what like a media tour and a car shop, full car wash. All these terms I didn't know that I've learned at different times. But I mean, the one that sticks out to me the most, it's very, very simple. But Dr. Kerry Crooks was one of my professors at Florida. And there's lots of different things I remember taking from him. In fact, we still stay in touch. And I mean, the key piece that he talked about was, you be yourself. Don't try to take on some other persona when you're in the public eye. Be as genuine as you can be to yourself. And then like one just like super small tip that I picked up from him that I see all the time now is, if I'm doing an interview and I'm sitting next to someone and we're both on camera, uh, is most of the time, if you're being interviewed, once it starts, you turn and you just talk to the person interviewing you the whole time. He said, in that scenario, go back and forth to the camera and to the person, and it's a three-way conversation. And it's just like a simple thing, but I'll notice people all the time not do that, and you kind of miss an opportunity to connect with the actual audience.
That's great. I love that. So you got some media training from your college professor, it
Yeah,
sounds like as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
All right. So you've had to pitch yourself in many ways throughout your football and your professional career. Not just pitching balls, but you have to pitch yourself out there. How do you balance pitching with purpose? And a lot of your initiatives are purpose driven versus pitching with ego. And what's the difference in how that message comes across?
Man, so there was one time where I think I really got this wrong, and I think it goes back against my professor's advice. I tried to be what I thought someone else wanted me to be, I was in between teams and I hadn't signed yet. And I was talking to the GM of the Packers. And so, at the time, the starting quarterback was Brett Favre and the backup quarterback was Matthew Hasselbeck. And the third team quarterback was Aaron Brooks, who actually went and started in New Orleans for a lot of years. So, uh, he was talking to me and he was trying to he asked a direct question about, did I feel confident? Like I did feel confident, but I said, I think the quote was something like, I think I'm the best quarterback on the planet. And even as I said that, I'm like, one, that sounds really stupid. I would never say that. And two, you got Brett Favre starting. So I just felt silly when I kind of got out of my shoes. I think most of the time I've become, I think it's healthy and it's a little bit of a cop out sometimes is I end up pitching other things than myself. I'm pitching Desire Street and the kids that we're working on. I'm pitching this idea of service. And so I can kind of default to those things. So I think that kind of helps protect me from having to wrestle with your real question, because when you're trying to get somebody to do something, that's your goal, and you can get your ego so tied up into, do I win this pitch, versus can I try to create a scenario where what I'm pitching is a win-win. Like this is good for all of us, and if I really believe that, then I think your ego is less involved, and you usually learn how much your ego is involved if someone says no, and then you can wrestle with that.
Yeah, it's almost like you're lifting others up and you lift with them because you're elevating others
Yeah,
as you go. That doesn't even sound like anything that you would say. That's
I
so
know.
funny that you admitted that. Like, but be yourself. Very good
Yeah,
advice.
yeah.
All right. So you've also, I've seen you from stage pitching, fundraising, specifically for Desire Street. We've done many events together, and I just have to say too quickly that thank you for letting Pitch Publicity work with Desire Street for so many years. We've done a lot of pro bono work with you, but I have to tell you, if you go back and watch any of the podcasts I've done with my former interns, because I interview one of them every month, any of my interns that ever worked on a Desire Street campaign, when I ask them what is their, best experience with any of the campaigns that they pitched at Pitch, Desire Street and your name always
Oh,
comes up.
that's
So
awesome.
it was coming out so much. I'm like, I have to get Danny on a podcast because he probably has no idea how much he has affected the PR students that have worked for me as
Mhm.
interns, that have just, you allowed me to bring them to your events. They got to see fundraising. For many of them, it was being at a big fancy party event for the first time, but we were running the event too. But now years later, because they've moved on in their careers, that's given them some kind of confidence to handle other big situations. But you really put together really well-run fundraising events for Desire Street. I've seen you do it, and I've seen it evolve over the years. I've seen you from stage ask for money. I've seen you bring celebrities to the stage like Spurrier or Pat Dooley or Tim Tebow, which I know is very hard to orchestrate because he just kinda tells you at the last minute when he's coming, I guess. And you've done golf tournaments, and now you have the pickleball. Can you tell me, just from a fundraising perspective, since you are in charge of raising so much funds for all the initiatives that you're doing, have you found that anything works better? Silent auctions, these tournaments, directly asking from the stage. Is there any method that you find is the best?
Yeah, it's kinda like what's the best offense or what's the best defense, and there's really not a clear answer. There's, I think, hundreds of ways you could strategize to raise money. Some people have great success with widespread direct mail. Some people do marketing on TV. Some people focus on events. Some people focus on all sorts of email campaigns. So, I don't think there's any one right or wrong way to do it. I think it's very dependent on who you are and what are your assets that you have to work with. And usually you can't do all of them. So you kind of have to pick which is the ones that you're going to do. And I think one general rule is that for most nonprofits, 80 to 90% of their money come from 10 to 20% of their donors.
Mm.
So that means you've got it's a major donor heavy So you need to pay attention to that. You need to develop a system to support you in working with major donors. And for us, even events aren't just to raise money, they're part of that process of relating to major donors. And so it's very relational. You have to really care about people, and you have to really not just call them once a year and ask for money, but be a part of their lives and care about what's going on in their lives.
Do you remember the first time you ever stepped on stage and asked people for money? What was going through your head at that time, and how did you get in a place where you could confidently do that and not feel weird about it?
So I remember early in New Orleans, I was volunteering at Desire Street, and our founder of Desire Street said, "We're going to do a capital campaign to raise $3 million, and I want to share with you some information." I said, "Great." She handed me this letter, and it was kind of a trick because the letter was from me to other people as the campaign director for his campaign to raise money, and I was very kind of uncomfortable because, like, this is a weird situation. I hadn't really done a lot of that in the past. I felt very awkward about it. My initial desire was to, uh, I'd read some books about people that made so much money that they decided they were going to keep this amount, and anything above it they were going to give away. And they made so much money that they only like kept 2%, and they were giving away so much money. So that's like, but then I also realized I'm not a businessman. I didn't sign a Brett Favre contract. I realized I could probably inspire and raise more money in my life than that. And I think the key for me that makes a difference is I'm not just like begging someone for their money. I'm giving them an opportunity to invest in something that's going to enrich their lives, enrich the world, and make something better. So I'm just sharing an opportunity. Like, if I could share stock and Coke in the early days, that'd be a really nice gift to somebody, and so I try to think of that.
Yeah, I like that. I once had to talk a client down who was running a nonprofit because he was so petrified of asking for money on stage, and I just looked at him and I said, "Howard," I'm like, "Do you know how many people in the audience don't go to church and don't have the opportunity to give?" I'm like, You need to give them the opportunity to give, because I think human nature, like, we're really wired that way. We're wired to help others, and I think there's a lot of human beings walking around that never are asked to be part of something, and I hear that that's from what you're saying, that's what you're doing. You're really asking them to join in on a
Yeah,
mission versus hand over your money.
absolutely.
Um, all right, so let's talk about social media a bit. I follow you on social media. I also follow other athletes. I think this is a danger zone for many people, but particularly athletes. You can say the wrong thing and do the wrong thing. You seem to me, and this has always been my impression of you, is that you're a very private person, which is just why my first question probably threw you off guard. I told you to share something that you don't share. um, how do you keep your professional and private life separate in a sense? Like, do you have certain guardrails or rules that you never post about this, or you never talk about anything in this category? How do you keep it separate so that you still have your own personal life that's private?
I mean, that's a good thing to wrestle with because I think in order to be effective at all, you've gotta be there, and there's tremendous benefit, not so as much or for me, but also for all the nonprofits that we do, if there is a social media presence. It's not natural for me. I mean, still, I was at an event yesterday, and my only job was to make sure I got pictures, and I'm driving home, realized I forgot to get pictures. So, I keep forgetting, to do that, but I do want what's posted to be genuine. Like, I want it to be authentic, and it's things that I care about and believe in or am doing. Uh, but like we said earlier, there's certain things that are just I don't are less. A joke with Chris Doring might not be the same appropriate joke to share with the world. I reposted one joke I thought was really funny once, and I had people reaching out asking if my account was hacked. So then I realized maybe I had,
You're like, "Yes, it was hacked. Let
yeah,
me get
yeah,
my PR person on that."
it was really hacked. We try to stay away from anything that's culture warish. It's so easy to get in pissing matches, and there's a lot of energy around dividing and polarizing. So I really try to stay away from most of that. The only time I'll weigh in on things is if I think it's closer to my heart and what we do at Desire Street, and or there's been some things that Florida that have happened over the years that I've posted about that I felt important that some people liked and some people didn't. But that's typically also, to be honest, I've got an incredible partner in all this. James Gadsby. He's the one that deserves to be in the Hall of Fames, and he's really good at that stuff, and so he really helps me be wise there.
Does Danny Wuerffel get bad comments on his posts or haters?
Like I said, I usually don't say too. I mean, there's always like some Florida State fan that's mad about anything. Um, but I was really positive about the UF trustees pick for the president, and I got a chance to meet him and visit with him, and was very excited about that. And so I posted on that, and then there's a lot of people that, for different reasons, I think mostly political, didn't like that, and so there's a lot of pushback on that, and some other things, but. Uh, I think it's mostly positive, and honestly, I'm largely unaware, which is probably good.
So you just don't focus on all of the negativity and stay focused on what you're doing and the
Yeah,
positivity.
yeah.
Um, well, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. Just as we wrap up, I know you have a lot going on, but can you share with us anything that you want to pitch to our audience about what you're doing at Desire Street or Wuerffel Trophy? How can people get connected with you and be part of your mission and part of what you're doing?
I mean, this is a terrible pitch, but, like, I want people to care for others and do it in a way that draws people together. So, like, I don't care if you do that through Desire Street or the Wuerffel Foundation. There's somewhere right now that you can go, join some group, some cause, and that's, like, my biggest pitch is our hearts are wired to not be just about ourselves. And so you just get out there and do anything. We're doing a lot of great stuff through Desire Street. We just impacted 25 under-resourced neighborhoods in the past 5 years, and we're making our plan for the future. The Wuerffel Trophy now is presented by Allstate as our title sponsor, and they're just an incredible partner. We've got more nominees than ever. And also through the Wuerffel Foundation, we're helping other nonprofit leaders. So several athletes like Leanne Wall and Graham Murph as Gators and others from other colleges. We've helped them start their foundation. So easiest way to find me is DannyWuerffel.com. The hardest part is spelling my last name, but DannyWuerffel.com. You can look at Desire Street. You can look at Wuerffel Foundation, Wuerffel Trophy. But thanks, Amy.
Danny, thank you so much for joining us today. I know that you have inspired so many people in your career journey and that you're just going to continue to do so. And I want to encourage everyone to share this episode to get more people exposed to the good work that Danny's doing, but also to be inspired to do exactly what Danny says and just get involved. Get involved with any cause. Lead with your heart, and be sure to check out Danny's causes and foundations. Best place to go is his website, DannyWuerffel.com, where you can learn all about the Wuerffel Trophy, Wuerffel Foundation, Desire Street Ministries, Desire Cup, and the Pickleball. And be sure to follow him at Danny Wuerffel on X and also on Instagram. You will find him there. Thank you again, Danny.
Thanks, Amy.
And thank you for joining us on this episode of Pitch Live with Amy Summers. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and give us a rating or review. Your feedback helps us plan future episodes. I hope you're inspired today to get out there, pitch, advocate for yourself. And as Danny says, just be yourself to make success happen. As a bonus, join us at amycbox.com where you can get motivated, hone your communication skills, and binge as much mentorship as you want whenever you need it. The link's going to be in our show notes with all my social media handles. So let's stay connected so we can continue to follow each other and support. Until next time, keep making success happen. Thanks, Danny.